Hi, I'm Loek Dikker. I compose for films and I do that most of the time for the symphony orchestra.
So let's start from the beginning. Which one was the first instrument you learned to play?
It was the piano. I have to admit that was also the only instrument that I ever played. I had a bass sometimes in the house. I had a saxophone in the house and I did a little bit, but it just didn't work. Yeah.
How old were you when you start your music path?
I think I was 11, but sometimes I doubt I was 10. I started developing musical thoughts in my head, how primitive they even were, being so young. But I heard a lot of music on the radio, classical music. Then I already had the idea that I could maybe write something. As a piano player, I wanted to develop immediately my knowledge of the literature. Mm-hmm. So within a year after I started playing the piano, I was I couldn't really play them, but trying to read and play the Beethoven sonatas and all the Chopin pieces, I couldn't really perform them well, but that was not the task. The task was to read the literature, to get to know the literature, to confront myself with the musical literature.
Did you ever went to a school or did you learn everything by yourself?
I had private piano lessons. After a year, the guy said, okay, well, I think he should go somewhere else because he's talented and there's nothing much I could do with him now. So I went to the conservatory and I was in Latin school at the same time. And obviously you couldn't start only after finishing your high school. Mm-hmm. So with 17, 18 you could start. But they said, okay, you can have some lessons and make a combination with the school you're going to. Because I wanted to finish that as well. My parents said they got worried. They said, no, he's not going to be an artist, we hope. Because with them we have to support him the rest of his life as long as we live. That's a big chance, but to try to be an artist. There's a lot of suffering going on in that field. We have to realize these were the 50s, Everything was the same like 20 years before. The life that my parents lived was when they were young. Then the Big Depression started in 29. And then in May 1940 the war started. And then after the war Holland had to be rebuilt. And there was no culture development. Everything was sort of pressed down. Only in the 60s became improvement culturally and economically. So I went to that conservatory. Also the culture was very, very rigid and was very much not even the romantic. It was Bach and Mozart. Which were not my favorite composers by then. I was more into the sort of individual approach like the Romantics. So, and I started at the conservatory. Then I got the notion that they wanted me to be a classical pianist. My teachers were Mozart experts. And when I brought something else, in the meanwhile, I discovered the jazz music, and that discovery was like a hurricane. It was a concert I saw on TV somewhere, and I think it was Horace Silver with his quintet, Sonny Rollins with his tenor madness, and I remember I went to the television and put it on to see the concert, and then it showed and everything was okay and I wanted to go sit down, but I never reached my chair. I stand there already. And the storm was getting over me of the nowadays feeling of what life is now, today. Mm-hmm. And that sort of wiped out the classical elements. I mean, it changed immediately, just in half an hour. I was totally changed in what I wanted. So it was okay to learn technical things like playing the piano, but not Mozart. And my teacher was interested in what I would like to play, and then she said, well, we can't do that. I mean, they played at the Concertgebouw. The classical music is holy there. They shouldn't play jazz music at the Concertgebouw. Then I thought by myself, okay, what I'm doing here. And I had a little bit theoretical lessons, and they were okay. But then I decided, after 3 months, how do you call that, at the vacation in autumn, fall holidays, that I wouldn't go there anymore. And not far from here, was the teacher's house where I went, and I closed the door behind me, and the click is still in my ears. I closed the door, I heard the click, I looked for me, and there was nothing there. The only thing I could see is a sort of plain. It looked like a frozen lake, and there was mist over the lake. You couldn't see the horizon. Everything was sort of white, gray, and I said, okay, I'm here. I don't have any support there, and so I have to find everything out personally. And that was what I was looking at. That is a big moment. I mean, after that, okay, I tried to listen to the music, to the jazz music. I copied the music from the little EPs and LPs that I had, and I bought some music notes of Artatum and Thelonious Monk. They were available, and I started playing that. Already I had written something for the school orchestra, a piece of music, but then I started also in jazz trying to develop some themes to be able to improvise on. That was a great moment, as a matter of fact. I didn't think it was that great at the moment that I was there, but you know, my father, he was directing those fanfare and harmony orchestras, you know, with wind instruments and so on. And they would march sometimes. And when I was like 15 or something, he said, well, you know, there's a guy playing in the band, and he's interested in the same music as you are. So you should come to the rehearsal at one time, maybe late, you know, and maybe you like to speak to him. I went there, and there was this sax playing. We met, and we played blues on the piano, he on the saxophone. And then he asked later. He asked me, "Do you like to join my band?" And that was Hans Dulfer, as a matter of fact. So Hans Dulfer was playing in the same orchestra, but that my father was conducting, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
How did you get your first composing gig in film, for example?
We make a big jump in time now. I was composing for my own bands, and it got more and more sophisticated. Different things. I worked with string orchestras or strings in my band very, very early already. I had a career slowly developing in theater. I'm working with theater makers for dance. I did a lot of work for dance. And you know, I traveled Germany with a band, and I met all the young German filmmakers in those times, like Fassbinder and Wim Wenders, and through a friend of mine who lived there and was a filmmaker as well. I joined them, and I spoke a lot with them, so I was mixing on the weekends and everything, and we got befriended. That was in Munich, where they all lived. But I never wrote for film. But I did something there. I wrote my first theater music for the theater school in Munich of the university. The Junge Academie is the name of that theater school. One of the main characters playing was Rainer Werner Fassbinder. But you know, I didn't have the ambition to write for movies so much, as a matter of fact, by then. But after I did also my own musical theater shows. I wrote the text, I wrote the music, and I organized, produced the whole bloody thing, you know. And nobody did it for me, so I had to. Well, that's how to learn the business, you know. Yeah. But then at some point, a famous Dutch actress, Willeke van Ammelrooy, you met her. And she was in the audience when I did a jazz concert at the Schaffhausen Theater here at the Felix Meritus. And she said, well, you know what? You should write film music. But she found the music that she heard very expressive and also bringing images to her mind and everything. I said, well, that is a good idea. Well, when can I start? Of course, she didn't have an answer to that. Then at some point, there were people asking me if I would write the music for a sort of triptych, this is a three-part, three directors sort of movie. And I did. And then I started producing a real feature film, because the triptych was in the cinema, but it was written for more for TV, you know, like 35 minutes each, or 40 minutes for each delivery, something, and they just released it in one. Then I got the commission, and you never know what happened for their second, because I think that, let me see what the English title is for that movie. The guys, like Otto Jongerius and Roy Logger, that they produced and directed. It was called, like, they thought they would make me very happy. They said, you know what, we rented the Residentie Symphony Orchestra to play and record the music. And I thought to myself, you know, I know how a jazz band works, but the symphony orchestra, I'm not sure. So what happened, I got this oversized commission and started working like crazy to learn instrumentation and everything that had to do, as much as I could, with writing for the symphony. And I was very lucky, because the montage, the cutting, it took them a long time to finish that, because they didn't agree. They were very good friends, but they were difficult colleagues to each other. So they were like 3 months over time with the cutting, and that gave me more time to prepare. And I was very insecure, of course, about everything that I wrote. Then came the moment that we were going to do the recording. I knew the conductor personally. His name was Hans Vonk, a famous Dutch conductor. I knew him because there was always school contests in jazz and classical music, and I took part in both. He did as well. He turned out to be a better classical player than I was, and I turned out to be a better jazz player than he was. So we knew each other, but of course he had his profession. He came to my house and he ran up the stairs such a way that I knew he's going to look in the score, and if it is just one little thing he doesn't like, he's getting out of it. And he just showed it, you know. Okay, I know him, but and I gave him the score, and he was looking through it, and I saw a big cloud of relief. And the clouds disappeared. He got a smile, and all the tension went out of his shoulders. Then he started talking about the score like friends, you know, like colleagues. He talked to me like a colleague then. Beautiful. Yeah, and that was a great moment. Then I knew that it was okay. The music was appreciated quite a bit, and I was doing the recordings, and everybody was, oh, well, where's this guy coming from, you know, it's sounding so good. And I was very happy with that, of course. I killed myself about with putting so much trouble in the music. But you know, it's like I studied Chinese in 1 year. I mean, I took the whole study in 1 year. So much energy and so much effort I put in it. And I was very tired. I look at the picture that was taken on the recording. I look at myself and say, oh, this guy is going to die in a week. It came right out of the score that I wrote for the two queens and the king. Well, you know, I walk. I don't mind the weather. I just walk. I don't mind the landscape. I walk. And there was this afternoon, I don't think it was very cold, but there was a lot of wind, and it just rained and rained and rained. And then somewhere on a bridge at Herengracht somewhere, I met the sound guy that had been working on Two Queens on a King. He had his intermission, he wanted to get his head out of that bloody cellar from the studio. And we started talking. And we kept on talking. I mean, we were there for half an hour, say, and the wind was blowing and the rain was falling all the time, and we didn't mind. And then he said, you know, what I'm working on now, that is a movie, and Paul Verhoeven, he does this movie. And he's, as a matter of fact, he's now looking for a composer. He does not want to work with Rogier van Otterlo on it, you know, Rogier did Soldier of Orange. So I was speaking to the guy there in the wind. He knew the music that I did for Two Queens and a King. He said, well, you make a little tape of it and you bring it to Paul, and I'll tell Paul that somebody is going to deliver. So I did. I didn't forget this time. And a week later, I got a call by Paul that he wanted to talk with me. So I went there. Then he played the tape and said, well, this is what I like a lot. And I could just understand what he meant, because I was enthusiastic about that phrase in the music as well. I remember that very well, that I liked a lot what I did at that moment. And we talked and this and that and that. And then he said, oh yeah. A little bit later, after the second talk, I got a call that he wanted to work with me. That was the third movie I ever did, Forest Man. So that answers your question, as a matter of fact. I was amazed because I didn't realize that I had done something that nobody expected me to do, and it worked. Mm-hmm. That was not only for me, but also for Jan de Bond, the DP. He was already for some years in the US, but his career was not really developing. But after The Forest Man, it developed. And after the Forest Man, I got an entree, a ticket to ride for the USA as well. People were special in the USA. The film was premiered in Seattle, and I was there. The people were very enthusiastic about the movie in the first place, and about Jan's work and about my work there. And I asked Paul, what is it that makes that makes the music so attractive? And he said, yeah, you do everything wrong in there. You do it different. You use strings. If everybody else would use the drums and the wind ensembles and the brass, you know, and you would use strings, and it works. They are just amazed that it works, you know.
So you prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, I was the only one. From then on, I was the only one right.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, there's more to watch.